So today I thought we'd have a walk around my Hacky Racer. If those aren't familiar with Hacky Racers, it's a racing series that started off in the US based on really around the little Tykes Power Wheels and converting them into something totally different to what they should have been. We now race those in the UK, and there's a set of rules that the Hackies have to comply with. So as you can see, looking at the Hacky, fairly conventional design, 4 wheels, seat, steering wheel, all that good stuff. And the frame itself is a fully custom frame, welded down to 20mm, 2mm thick square box section. I could have gone a route that some of the other Hacky racers have done, which is converting an existing platform such as a quad bike, which are very popular because a lot of quad bikes, especially kids ones, the kids outgrow them or the engine blows, and they make a great platform because you get wheels, axles, steering, brakes. You're going to discard the engine anyway, and you can pick them up off marketplace or similar sites for around 100 quid. So given that you've got a limited budget on Hackies, then that gets you off to a great start. But really, I enjoyed the build process probably as much as I enjoy the whole process of racing them. So I really wanted to go this route. We're going to focus in on a few areas that I quite enjoyed doing. Firstly, it's trying to get everything to fit within the wheelbase, which is quite a challenge. It can only be 1.5 meters long, and that's longer than me for sure. So once you sit in that seat, then it's a bit of a squash, because if you walk round, you can see there's the seat, but you still have to allow for room for the actual motor itself. You've got the controller, the large silver box sitting next to it, and that causes the seat to move forward. And certainly that's one of the things in the next design I'll be looking to do, is a way to move that seat backwards so that it gives better leg length within that limited space. But for now, it works, it's drivable. If we just move back round, so that's the motor. Very popular choice. It's a Chinese e-bike motor and controller, readily available for the pair of them, less than £100, and give you sufficient power and to get off the ground with. You're limited to 30 amps anyway. So yes, you could go a bigger motor, but in reality is if you go too far, you're going to be popping fuses, so that's no good. So these are a good starting combination. Other areas that could be adopted is smaller brushless, along with say a VES controller. And that's something that I think we'll see coming into the sport later on. If I just pan around a little bit, you can see here there's also the brakes. Because it's a solid rear axle, there's a single caliper acting on one disc. It's hydraulic. I originally went with a cable operated brake, which unfortunately really didn't work. The routing, which is not optimal for a cable, just too much friction. So I decided to go to the hydraulic route, which gives a really good braking, but is actually quite a pain to actually bleed, especially in this configuration. To get the system to bleed, I really had to do a reverse bleed, which means forcing fluid from the caliper back up to the master cylinder, with lots of lifting the back, lifting the front to try and get air to move through the system. And yeah, that's definitely one of the learning spots for me, is looking at a different master cylinder for any future builds for one I've got at the moment. But overall, very happy with the hydraulics. They give a great brake feel, flexibility in the routing. As I move forward, you'll see there's the electronics such as there are on a Hacky Racer. We've got a ammo box underneath. In the ammo box is the batteries, and running a couple of, well, will be, once I can buy them, a couple of 12,000 milliamp hour 6S batteries to give in a 12S configuration. Seem to be pretty rare to buy at the moment, so I've just got a smaller set of 6S batteries in for testing. Along with, you can see there's the main cutoff switch and 3 buttons, one for reverse, one for lights, and one, I can't remember what the heck it's for. But if we just go down, there's a small display, and you can see if I just switch on the display, there we go, nice clicking sounds. You see we're running at 48 volts, there's some cumulative power there, all good stuff. If I give a quick press, there's the horn, and we've got lights as well. If I go over to here, you can see them lighting up the garage. So I just switch that off and we'll step back and carry on the walk around. So I knew that for my first Hacky I wanted front suspension, but I wasn't really sure how to get that suspension in. I've gone for what's called a Springer suspension, which is something that's used on old style bikes. And if we zoom in, there we go, you can see it really is pretty simple. It's just a big spring on the front suspension mount. So it gives some compliance, but it's clearly not your traditional shock absorber and spring, but hopefully that helps a little bit. You see as well, we've got camber on the wheels. I think that's one of the things that I'd looked at, is put it on the kingpin more so than the wheel, but that's one of the learning points. And down there you've got the steering arms. The steering arms I originally made my own, but trying to get the threads, nuts to match the threads on the actual joint seemed impossible. And after digging around AliExpress, it was much cheaper just to buy a complete made unit than try and make them yourself. So that's what I did, and that's got around that problem. We just pan up, you see there's the light combined with horn. Again, very cheap, very available, and I just welded that on and seems to do the job. I talked about the master cylinder, and that gold item there is a master cylinder, and the cap here is what you have to take off to fill, which means that to bleed the brakes you really have to have the front end elevated, basically vertical, so you can fill it without brake fluid pouring out, which makes the whole bleeding process pretty annoying. It's also designed to fit a bike, so the master cylinder itself is designed to sit vertically, hence that's why when it's in a horizontal position it's such a pain to bleed. And we've got a simple box section pedal. For the next version I'm going to go with a Brakemaster Cylinder, which looks like this. So it's designed to sit horizontally. It would sit, instead of where that gold one is, you'd sit there. So you can see how it's really designed so that that pedal can act straight on this point. The banjo at the back, fill for the fluid, and much more suited to this application than this unit here. Again, readily available off AliExpress and others, which makes it a great choice, I think, for hydraulic brakes, rather than these units which often come packaged with the caliper, but really just it's such a pain trying to bleed these that I'd recommend that going over something like this, because it just helps your sanity in terms of going forwards. The accelerator again is just a standard part bolted on. You've got a reasonable amount of throw. Seems a little sensitive at the bottom end, certainly when coupled with that controller, something I have to look into. So low speed, just trying to just do a walking pace, seems a little bit off at the moment. But full throttle, which seems to be where most of the Hackies spend their life, probably not a problem anyway. One of the things that you can see here is there are guards for your feet as you drive. Your feet, you're going to be bouncing around. What the guards are doing is really allowing for when you put lock on and stop your feet getting trapped in, and also give you somewhere to rest. So I felt those were necessary. The steering wheel, just a pretty standard steering wheel on a 20mm shaft with a hacked together flange just so it could bolt to that. And the seat, again, was sold as a drift bike seat, but is pretty much the right size for me. I found it was quite flexible when I first put it in, such that there's so much deflection that it would deflect and hit the sprocket. Not great. So I had to put initially that bar in. As you can see, that red bar that runs just in front of the motor, that stopped the significant amount of deflection, so saved the sprocket grinding away me back. Always a good move. So I've got that in there now. The other thing I did after testing, which weren't really apparent in the initial sort of sitting there, is the seat is best at an inclination. So I've repositioned the seat so that there is an inclination. It's much more comfortable now. It doesn't feel like you're always being thrown forwards when trying to get moving. So I definitely recommend thinking about not just leg length, which was my major preoccupation, but also the inclination of the seat, so you stay in it when you think about bouncing along bumpy ground. The wheels are quite big, quite chunky. Many of my Hacky racers go for smaller ones, but I quite like these. I quite like the Effect 145/76s. Certainly that's what's written on the wheel, and I think they do a nice job. Give it a sort of nice look, but you certainly don't have to have such chunky wheels to make the things go on there. On testing as well, is I played with a number of motor positions. I had it initially mounted so it was in a vertical plane. Weren't really happy with that because you lacked adjustment. So I did a quick hack, put some angle iron on the bracket, chopped the bracket down, put some, then just wedged in some aluminium plate, which felt really nice to work after working in steel for a while. But one thing that I really didn't figure on is a huge amount of torque reaction from the motor when you go underway. So there's significant flex from that aluminium. So I'm going to replace that aluminium plate with a steel plate to get rid of that torque reaction. And because when I initially put the motor in, this chain had a lovely tension, but because that torque reaction's bent with 5mm aluminium plate, and now got a very slack chain, which is not good really for that. So that's for Hacky at the moment. It's at a drivable but probably not competition ready stage. It needs a theme. Haven't thought of a theme yet. You get extra points for having a theme. At the moment it just looks like just a fairly bare sort of electric go-kart, which effectively it is. So I'm going to have fun trying to think of a theme for it. Got a whole bunch of improvements thinking through in terms of making it a bit more ergonomic, even though the races are 5 minutes. I think making it a place that is a bit more comfortable to sit in, allow you to focus on the racing more than just staying in the cart. So that's definitely one of the things we're looking at. Obviously the brake parts, I'll probably look at trying to get a better angle on the steering column, because at the moment it's okay, but I think trying to get it more level with the frame, I think would help. I have to think about what that means to the steering geometry. I did, when I put the steering in, also look at Ackerman steering, all that fun stuff. Watch lots of videos on that. I think that's helped. It seems to be relatively stable at speed at the moment. Time will tell once it's really bedded in. So that's it. That's Hacky Mark 1, and we'll see how it goes. Thanks for watching.